Now let's discuss the topic of snaps. Now the snap to button is over here at the bottom. You've got individual icons for each type of snap, but basically the dialog box is this little button over here, and if you click on it, you will see that the auto snap settings are will show up on your screen. And these are pretty self-explanatory. So these are the things you're going to snap to: the control points, the intersection point, the midpoint, the parallel points, the perpendicular to, perpendicular from. Usually setting it up as something similar to what you're seeing on the screen is a pretty reasonable choice. What is a control point? A control point is, let me just close this. So for example, if I were to turn on this one over here, a control point is basically all these points on a profile or on the edges of objects, basically, which define the three-dimensional shape. So because the control point is snappable at the moment, therefore if I wanted to enter a plate, for example, I could snap to these points over here, for example, and like that I would be able to create a plate very easily. Now, one thing to remember about the control points is that although the control point snap is open, COMOSYS still disallows you to snap to those points if you are entering the main structure, which means beams and columns and braces, etc. Because, like for example, if I were to have another column over here, and if I were to now create a beam, and let's say I was zoomed out, I could accidentally snap to one of those control points. So for example, I could snap over here or over here or over here, and that would not be the proper way point to snap to, because what I do want to snap to is the finite element point of this object. But when you're not really fully zoomed in, sometimes you can go, from here to here, and accidentally you don't realize, and you've snapped to one of the control points. Now, COMOSYS will disallow that. So let me, even if I zoom in, you will see, even if I zoom in and I go to the beam command, I'm not being able to snap to any of the control points, even though the control point snap setting is open, because normally you need to keep, you prefer to keep it open, because when you're doing detailing, you don't want to constantly turn this on and off when you're entering plates and bolts and welds, etc. You want this to be on, but you want this to be not in play usually when you're entering beams and columns. So COMOSYS will automatically do that. So it will not allow you to snap to control points even if they're open. But if you did, so normally, like I said, it would, even if you're zoomed out, you can quite, with minimal risk, you can go like that and ensure that your finite element model is snapping correctly. But let's say we actually wanted to snap to the control point, and we're entering a beam. So it's not going to allow me because it doesn't snap to them. So to bypass that default behavior, I would need to press the Alt key. And if I press the Alt key, now it's allowing me to snap to those points. Now, of course, this breaks the finite element model, as you can see. This is not something we would normally do, but you could do this, for example, not when you're entering the main beams and columns, but let's say you're creating a connection in which there's a little angle, for example, which you want to create, which needs to be, which is not really connected to the finite element model. So in that case, you could press the Alt key and snap to whichever point which you wanted. Now, if we go back to the auto snap settings, you can see that these are the points it will snap to. If you sometimes you want to snap to a point on a line, any point on a line. So for that, you can the way to do it is to press the control key as you're going. So for example, normally if I am going to enter a plate, so I'm going to enter a plate like that, from that point to that point, but I want to snap to any point over here. But obviously this is not an edge point, not a control point, so I'm not being able to snap somewhere over here. So what I could do is if I press the control key, you see now it's snapping to some, now obviously it's not an exactly defined point, but it's some point on that line. So I can go like that, and then I can snap to some point over. I can go to, because my perpendicular snap is open. So now it's snapping to the perpendicular point, and then I can go in and close my loop, and my plate will be defined. Now, similarly, just like you occasionally need to snap to some nearest point on a line, sometimes you want to snap to something which is totally, which doesn't connect to anything, not even a line, not even any point on a line. It's just a free point in midair. And for that, you would need to press the Control and Shift keys together. Little more advanced features on the right hand side. This is something you might know already, that this will basically tell COMOSYS when you select a point, it will either snap to that point which you're selecting, which you're hovering on, or it might project that point onto the view, depending on if the view is not rotated. If you're looking at it from an unrotated position, what does that mean? What it means is, for example, this is a plan view. If I press the 0 button, I'm looking at it from the top. In this position, even if I snap to the top of this column, it's going to drop that point to the ground, to the 0 level. Even if I snap to the top of the column, it's going to just project it to the wherever the definition of this view is. But if this view was even slightly rotated like that, not at the exact 0 definition, and if that was the case, then if I snap to a point, it'll stay there. It will basically stay at that point. So this is what these settings are telling you. Normally you should keep it at auto. This is what auto means, that if it's a zeroed view, then you drop down to the definition. If it's not, then you stick to whatever point is selected. But you can manually change this to always drop to the view, and or always get the 3D one. So for example, if I keep it to to view, for example, I can now select this top point over here, and it will fall down to the view definition. So let's try that. For example, if I go to my auto snap settings, and instead of leaving it at auto, if I force it to drop to the view, even if the view is rotated, so I'll choose this option, the view option. And now if you see, if I go to my beam command and select this point, so if you see, even if as I'm hovering over that point, you see the point is actually snapping to the ground level. You can see the little red dot on the ground level. So I'm selecting this point, but it drops to the ground. Then I select this point, and it drops to the ground as well. So although I'm snapping to points at that somewhere over here, but COMOSYS is automatically projecting those points to the view. And that's what this setting would mean, that it forces it to project to the view. Auto would mean that, what auto would mean, if it was at auto, like this, not in the view one, if it was at auto, then it would mean that you basically, whatever point you're snapping to, it will keep it over there. So if I'm snapping to this one, it's going to stay there. If I'm snapping to that one, it's going to stay there. So this is the difference between auto and the view projection settings. And the 3D is basically the other auto version, in which case, even if it is zeroed, it's a non-rotated view, even then it will snap to whatever point you're snapping in 3D.